Hi friends, this is Caitlin and I'm so excited to share with you a couple of the new Halloween stamp sets that are coming out on August 17th from Possum Stamps. This is the Hauntingly Sweet stamp set, which has the most adorable little candy corns all ready for trick-or-treating. And I'll also be sharing the Spooktacular Cupcakes, which has some of the cutest little cupcakes around. And my favorite thing is that both stamp sets have dies that cut out the sentiments as well as all of the images. To complete my card, I'm also going to be pulling in the Clouds for Days stencil to create a little bit of a cloudy, creepy background. And today, to make sure we could fit all of this in on one card, I'm going to be making a slimline card, a little graveyard scene featuring that graveyard tombstone cupcake, as well as a bunch of our sweet little candy corn trick-or-treaters. So I was having some issues with my ink pad. Don't judge the fact that I had to stamp these a couple times on the stamps. It was definitely that I switched up to a new ink pad. But you can see I'm stamping out all of my images. I'm going to go with the witch, the vampire, the cat, and the mummy for my candy corns, as well as both of those little strawberries. They're like white chocolate dipped strawberry ghosts. So cute. And then I'm also going to be stamping 3 of my tombstone cupcake. And layering these through our scene is what's going to create our own little cupcake graveyard for our trick-or-treaters to be kind of sneaking through on their way to go get some more candy. I don't know if you do this too, but sometimes it really helps me to have a little story in my mind for what's going on in my card, and just kind of helps keep me on track while I'm putting everything together. I started out my coloring today using some cool gray markers to shade in the white chocolate part of my strawberries. I still wanted them to look bright and white, so I left a lot of white space, but I figured if I didn't put any shading, they would almost look like I had forgotten them. So then I went in with some red on the strawberry top, and then I went in with greens for the little leaves, and I made sure to pick some greens that I knew I was going to want to use later on in my scene. I'm going to use it to fill in my cupcake wrappers, and that just helped me to kind of limit the amount of different shades I had on my card. Since this is going to be a pretty busy scene, I definitely knew I was going to be using a lot of color, so I wanted to stay consistent across each individual kind of color. So my greens are the same, my yellows are the same, that kind of thing. So I colored all of my candy corns up the same way on their base layers. So I'm showing you 2 here, and then we're going to speed through the other 2 off camera. But I did yellow at the bottom, orange in the middle, and then some same cool grays up at the top. I always have to look up candy corn to make sure that I have the colors in the right order. I don't know what it is, but they're one of my favorite things. I love decorating with candy corn stuff, but I can never remember the order, if it's the yellow or the orange at the bottom. So I shaded all of these up the same way, like I said, and then just went in afterwards to give them kind of unique accessories. So there you go. YouTube magic. Now all 4 of my candy corn are colored up, and it's going to be time to go in to start coloring up all of their little costumes. So I started out with my little vampire bat here, and we're going in with just some neutral gray markers to start creating the look of black. You want to be really mindful when you're coloring things in quote-unquote black, because if you just went in with a super dark black marker and filled in the whole thing, or pencil or anything like that, you would completely lose all of your definition and detail. So you want to go in and create some really deep shadows with your darkest shades, but then work your way into grays. And even though you're using more gray than black, your eyes will look at it and tell you that it's supposed to be black, and it just looks like shading. So I colored in the little kitten's ears and tail with the same shades, and the same for the witch's hat, just going in with those same neutral markers. You could definitely make them all individual if you wanted to, or you had enough color range available to you, but I really like when those kinds of things are kind of consistent across my card. So I shaded in the witch's sweet little broom and the handle, and then I used those same E markers to shade in the mummy's bandages. I thought this was just so cute that he is kind of getting scared, and so I decided right when I was coloring him that I would be using him with those 2 little ghost strawberries, so that they're kind of the one he's spooking. No, the other way around. They're spooking him. I went in with a white gel marker just to add some highlights to the eyes, the glasses, and then the edges of the candy corn just to give them a little bit of shine and kind of break up all that color. So now I went in with my cupcakes. Like I said before, I used those same green tones. I wanted this to kind of give the idea of grass without being, you know, super literal about it. But this way we get kind of that grassy field feel of a graveyard or cemetery that these little candy corns might be sneaking through, and also still giving a nice dimension to these cupcake wrappers. So I'm just going to color one on screen for you guys, and then I'll do the other two off screen. I did them all the exact same this time. So I went in with the same E40 markers that I was using before and just shaded up that cupcake to look like kind of a chocolate dirt. And then I couldn't decide what to do for the frosting on top, and so I really wanted to pull in some more purple to kind of get up those Halloween, that trio of purple, orange, and green. So I thought it would be a nice way to pop in some purple. I added the same neutral gray markers from before to the tombstone, and then I ended up going back in with one of those really light E40 markers that I used on the mummy's wraps just to kind of touch on some of the bones, just again so that they didn't look like they were forgotten. So voila, all of my images are colored, and it was time to stamp out my sentiment. So I'm not kidding when I tell you that one of my absolute favorite things about these stamp sets is that the dies cut out the sentiments. I just think that gives such a clean and finished look. Sometimes I have a really hard time picking out where my sentiments are going to go, because if I didn't leave a room to put them down flat, or I did ink blending and I don't want to have to wait to do embossing, it just stresses me out. So being able to use a die to cut out my sentiment, which makes it feel very complete to me, I can just add it anywhere on the card and it looks very purposeful. So I love that about these new sets. I think that's a great thing that Possum Stamps is doing, and I will definitely be using those sentiment dies. So I'm lining up all of my dies now and just taping them down with some really low tack tape, and I'm running them through my die cut machine. And there's something so satisfying about when these pop out and they're just like these cute little characters waiting to go on your card. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I love them. So I have them all over there in that little dish, and now I'm working on ink blending up my background. So I took a panel of gray cardstock and my Clouds for Days stencil, and I'm going to be rotating that and also flipping it. So that's why I'm wiping it off in between, just so that I don't get ink all over my fingers or all over my project. And I'm going in with the with a gray, I believe, Distress Oxide ink, just so that it would be nice and dark. And you can see I added some low tack tape there at the bottom just to help me hold that bottom part of the stencil into place. And I really wanted the color to be really soft as it was coming up off of those clouds. I didn't want anything too bold because we're going to be covering up a lot of this with our characters. So I also took that same ink right around the edges just to kind of create a soft kind of vignette. I always think that gives a nice little bit of a spooky feel to my cards. Then I got my card base ready. This is just a regular standard slimline card. So I scored my paper right down the middle, folded it, and I'm going to be placing a panel of orange cardstock just to create a really thin matte border around my scene. And I like the idea of all of the gray on the inside and the scene, but the orange kind of helping to kind of pop and make everything still bright and happy. We want spooky, but we're going for cute spooky, not scary spooky, if that makes any sense. Once my card panel was ready, it was time to start laying out all of my pieces and figuring out where everything was going to go. So I knew I wanted my cupcakes kind of evenly spaced across my card. I knew I wanted my scared candy corn in the middle with those ghosts, and then it was just a matter of kind of zhuzhing things around, shifting them around until everything kind of laid out nicely and nothing was kind of too far over to one side. So I glued my cupcakes down flat, and I attached my candy corns on with foam tape just to give them a little bit of dimension. I also knew I was going to be bringing in one of the new sequin mixes, and I loved having a little dimension on my card, so I have a nice place to tuck some extra sequins. So I had a lot of fun kind of playing with popping these up. The ghosts I also adhered flat. I thought it would make more sense if they were kind of coming up behind that candy corn. He's just so cute with his arms up, like he's just so scared. And I thought that the sentiment really tied in well with that as well, that you are so sweet, it's scary, because he's a little bit scared. So I went in with my little cat over there on the right, and then my bat kind of overlaps those other two cupcakes right in the middle. And then it was time to adhere down my sentiment. And there are definitely going to be a couple different sequin mixes and other embellishments coming out with this release. So make sure that you keep an eye out when that release goes live on the 17th. But this one is called Witch's Brew, and it is absolutely adorable. It's the perfect mix of orange, green, purple, and black. And I love the variety of sizes as well, that some are super transparent, some are completely opaque, some are iridescent, some are more true to color. I just love the range that you get within each of these sets. So you can see I'm having fun kind of sprinkling them around and tucking them kind of behind my candy corn, in between my scenes, around my sentiment, just to give a little bit of sparkle. And I glued all those down with liquid glue, and that is my cupcake graveyard complete. So I hope that you are feeling so inspired. I'm so excited that you get this sneak peek. Please make sure you check out possumstamps.com on August 17th so for the full release, and I hope you have an amazing week. Happy crafting!